The story begins with our MC who finds himself in the emergency room of a hospital battling for his life. He is a mechanical engineer, but after he overworked himself, he suffered a stroke which landed him in a critical condition. He has had a tough life since he was younger. His parents died not long after he was born, ultimately leaving him an orphan. After graduating, he spent 20 years in the company, which was a living nightmare because he was getting trash pay. Throughout his tough life, he remained single since no girl is ready to date a broke, worthless loser like him. Thinking about all of these, our MC decides to just give up and stop fighting. He closes his eyes and passes on as the medical staff in the room tries to get him to wake up. When he finally opens his eyes, he finds himself in a luxurious room, dazzling with different types of treasures that almost blind his eyes. He assumes that he is still in the hospital room, and he fears that he will have to pay for the rest of his life thanks to being transported to such a prestigious hospital. Suddenly, a status window appears in front of him, welcoming him to the magical continent of Eldria. Our guy is initially confused as to what is happening, but his senses come back to life when he sees himself in the mirror and realizes that he is totally different. He is a handsome dude with blonde hair running down his neck. The first question that comes to his mind is why he looks the way he does. A week later, our guy finally settled in and figured out what was happening. After dying in the hospital room, he was reincarnated into this world as a dude named Ryan Edgar. Rene is the third son of a Grand Duke, Eldria Edgar, and he has a brother and a sister. Our guy realizes that Rain is the spoiled brat of the house whom everyone cares for and cherishes. They are always buying him stuff or feeding him just to make sure that he is comfortable since he is the smallest in the family. Rain is enjoying life so much that he starts believing that it is a remedy for his terrible past life. The continent Eldria is a world where everything relies on magic to function. The Kurdiral Empire is the largest human empire on the continent. There are also other races aside from humans living on the planet, such as elves and dwarves. The Edgar family is a noble family with a territory of about 300,000 kilometers and roughly 1 million subjects. As a noble, he also gets access to a personal maid who serves him. Rain figures out that his current sweet life is due to the tough life he had in his past life. He is having tea when the maid tells him that his father has summoned him. Moments later, Rain arrives in his father's chambers. He bows to his father in humility, and the man asks him if he knows why he has been summoned, but Rain says no since he can't read minds. His father then tells him that he has reached an age where he can manage his own territory, and he asks him if he has decided on where he would like to go. Rene is shocked to hear this since he never thought about anything concerning a territory. His father stands up, walks up to the big map in the room to tell Rain that the territory he is going to take over lies in the northwest. His father says the region might be safe due to the shortage of magicians, but the issue of food production has been a problem in the area. His father then says their land might currently be secured, but the future of their empire is not so optimistic. Rain agrees with his father because the royal family of the Kurdiral Empire is in a state of decline thanks to political corruption. There are several conflicts between the empire's lords. Ree is interested in protecting those who are his family because all he has witnessed since his reincarnation has been nothing short of care. His father notices that Rain is lost in his thoughts, and he assumes that he is putting too much pressure on the dude. His father lets him know that he doesn't need to rush himself, but Rain cuts in asking if the region will improve if there is food security. His father subtly tells him that food issues are not something that can just be solved with enthusiasm alone. The man believes that it takes step-by-step solutions to completely eradicate it. Deep down, his father believes that Rain is a child who doesn't know what he is talking about. On the other hand, Rain is quite confident that he is not relying on mere passion alone, but the wisdom of years of the human industrial revolution. With a bright smile on his face, he tells his father to leave the food issue to him. Icelanding City is the westernmost land of Alarian's territory, which borders the territory of the Grand Duke of Sorin to the north. To the west, it borders the territory of the elves, and to the south lies the vast ocean. Due to its location at the intersection of three nations, Icelanding City is often engaged in the flames of war. Constant fighting has left what was once a fertile land to nothing but a barren land with the population in decline. On the journey to Icelanding City, Rain immersed himself in every document detailing the territory. Reports on population, agriculture, trade routes, he read them all with sharp focus. It quickly became clear that if he wished to spark an industrial revolution, the most essential ingredient was a large labor force. And that was precisely what the city lacked. Without manpower, no innovation could take root. Increasing the population would be his first and most urgent task. It was during this time that Rain discovered something unexpected. The system had granted him a special ability, scan. With a simple thought, he could analyze a target and view their basic attributes. He tested it on members of his own family, and gained a rough understanding of how strength, talent, and potential were measured in this world. From that moment on, Rain resolved to recruit capable and talented individuals as soon as he arrived in his territory. Seated across from him in the carriage was his maid, Leah. She had been personally instructed by his father to keep a close watch on him and ensure he caused no trouble in his new domain. Beneath her professional composure, the red-haired maid silently prayed that her young master would rule calmly and avoid unnecessary chaos. Meanwhile, in the Lord's estate of Icelanding City, news of Rain's imminent arrival had already spread. One of the men overseeing the city, an arrogant noble who nominally held the title of city lord, asked whether they should strike first. He had heard that the Grand Duke cherished his youngest son dearly, and feared repercussions if things went poorly. A second figure stood beside him, his face hidden behind a cold, expressionless mask. "We wait," the masked man said calmly, "until we receive further instructions from our master." The city lord hesitated. He feared that Rain might uncover the extensive financial and tax fraud they had been committing for years. The masked man dismissed the concern with a scoff. "The boy knows nothing of accounting or taxation. Feed him random ledgers and muddle the records. He won't understand a thing." With Rain's arrival imminent, the masked man instructed the city lord to leave so he could personally welcome the young noble. As the door closed, a glint of hatred flickered beneath the mask. The masked man bore a long-standing grudge against Rain's father, and he intended to make the son pay for it. Not long after, Rain and Leah reached the outskirts of Icelanding city. Rain gazed across the land and frowned. The soil was rich and fertile, far better than he had expected. And yet, the fields lay abandoned, swallowed by silence. It wasn't the lack of resources that plagued the region, it was a lack of people. He asked Leah for a map of the territory. She handed it to him without hesitation. Rain studied it for several minutes before his eyes lit up. "If a canal were built here," he muttered, tracing a route with his finger, "it could connect directly to the southern seaport." The potential was enormous. Before he could sink deeper into thought, a sudden commotion drew his attention. Nearby, a small girl clutched her father's arm, begging him through tears to stop gambling. She told him the money he held was meant for her mother's medical treatment. The man ignored her pleas. His eyes were bloodshot with obsession as he insisted that this time, he was certain he would win. When the girl tried to stop him again, he raised his hand. Before it could fall, Rain stepped forward and sent the man flying with a single punch to the face. Leah rushed to Rain's side, checking him over anxiously. "Young master," she said sternly, "next time you plan on fighting, please inform me in advance so I can prepare your protective equipment." Rain scratched his cheek. "It was impulsive. There wasn't exactly time." He then asked Leah to tend to the girl, while he dealt with the scum who dared to call himself a father. Rain walked up to the groaning man and looked down at him coldly. He scolded him for striking his own child and for endangering his family by gambling away money meant to save his wife's life. The man glanced up warily and asked who Rain was. "My identity doesn't matter," Rain replied flatly. "But remember this." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to an icy whisper. "If I ever find out you set foot in a gambling den again, I'll have your hands cut off." The threat shattered the man's courage. He scrambled to his feet and fled, swearing desperately that he would never gamble again. Once the man fled, Rain turned his attention to the trembling girl. With a thought, he activated the system and scanned her condition. Tears streamed down her face as she spoke, her voice shaking. If the money for her mother's treatment had been taken, she would have been left completely alone, stranded in a city that devoured the weak. The system responded. Name, Lillian. Age 9. Special attribute, agricultural affinity, rare. Rain's eyes widened slightly. Her basic stats were low, as expected for a child, but her special attribute was extraordinary. Farming, harvesting, soil adaptation, her potential in agriculture bordered on miraculous. To Rain, she wasn't just a child in need. She was a blessing. A talent like this could not be wasted. Rain immediately made a decision. "You can ride with us," he said gently. "We're heading into town anyway." Lillian panicked and shook her head. She glanced down at her dirty clothes, clearly uncomfortable. I'll make your carriage dirty." "It's not right." Rain chuckled softly. "It's just wood nailed together. There's nothing precious about it." Reluctantly, Lillian accepted. As the carriage moved, Rain asked her a question that had been troubling him. "Why is there such a thriving gambling den in this city when poverty is so widespread?" Lillian hesitated before answering. "Last autumn, the Grand Duke of Sorin attacked the city. Many soldiers died. Then, in the spring, a great flood destroyed most of the farmland and crops." She lowered her head. "After that, food became scarce. Some people couldn't even eat once a day." Rain's expression darkened. When they entered the city proper, Rain began assessing everything around him. His first priority would be conducting a census. Only by knowing the population could he calculate his available productive forces. But before that, he needed to see the territory's finances. He was about to ask Lillian for directions to the Lord's estate when the sound of hooves thundered through the streets. A horseman burst into view, whip cracking through the air as he screamed for everyone to clear the way. He sneered openly, calling the townsfolk peasants, as his horse charged forward. The animal nearly collided with Rain, but Leah reacted instantly, yanking him out of the way. The horseman rode on without even glancing back. Leah stood there, seething with rage. Rain quickly raised his hands. "Leah, easy. You're crushing me." She froze, realized how close she was, and stepped back in embarrassment. "Are you hurt, young master?" "I'm fine," Rain replied calmly. "Thanks to you." He then turned to Lillian. Do you know who that was? She nodded nervously. That's the young master of the Edwin family. All the casinos in the city belong to them. Rain smiled. Owning every casino in Icelanding city meant one thing: money. A lot of it. He had been wondering where he would find development funds. Now, the answer had practically ridden past him. Instead of heading for the Lord's estate, Rain changed plans. Take us to the casino. Lillian froze. What? But they'll take all your money. No one ever wins there. Rain laughed lightly. Don't worry. The casino won't beat me. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Just how powerful was this noble? Moments later, they arrived at the grandest casino in the city. From the outside alone, it radiated wealth. Rain felt a surge of anticipation. This place would become the foundation of his production line. Inside, the scene was exactly as he expected. A man knelt on the floor, begging for 10 gold coins, swearing he could win it all back. Nearby, another gambler screamed in manic joy, celebrating a hollow victory. Rain felt nothing but disgust. As long as casinos flourished, true labor would wither. Lillian leaned closer and whispered. The soldiers have already surrounded the building. Are you ready to act? Not yet, Rain replied calmly. I'm waiting for the big fish. He approached one of the attendants, who greeted him with a practiced smile. What game would you like to play, sir? Rain tilted his head. I don't know any of them. Show me something easy. The attendant's smile widened. Of course. Please follow me. He handed Rain 2 chips. On the house. Try your luck. Rain casually tossed the chips forward. They clattered across the table and settled neatly onto the small box. The attendants immediately erupted into cheers, praising his luck with exaggerated enthusiasm. Yet behind their smiles lurked something far uglier, predatory intent masked as hospitality. The game was called Sick Bow, a dice game popular across eastern regions. 3 dice were rolled, and depending on their total, the result was classified as either small or big. The odds were perfectly even, at least on paper. The attendant sighed theatrically. Unfortunate, sir. You lost. Rain looked unimpressed. That's it, he said flatly. I'm hungry. I'll be leaving now. The attendant's smile vanished. I'm afraid you can't leave just yet, he said. You need to settle your debt first. Rain frowned. Debt? When did I ever owe you anything? You borrowed the chips, the attendant replied smoothly. You must repay them. You clearly said they were on the house. The attendant chuckled. Nothing is free in a casino. His smile widened as he delivered the punchline. Each chip is worth 100 gold coins. Including service charges, your total comes to 250 gold coins. Rain's eyes turned cold. And if you don't have enough, the attendant added casually, you're welcome to leave your maid behind. Disgust twisted Rain's expression. Before he could respond, Lillian stepped forward, trembling but furious. Shut your mouth. You're lying. She turned to Rain. Don't believe him. Each chip is only worth 1 silver coin. The attendant's face darkened instantly. You little brat. Enraged that his scheme had been exposed, he barked for someone to deal with her. He never finished the sentence. Rain's fist struck him cleanly, sending his body flying across the casino floor. Rain stood tall, calm and composed. Who gave you permission to speak? Around them, gamblers barely glanced over, too consumed by their own desperation, praying for hollow victories. But someone did notice. Heavy footsteps echoed as the man Rain had been waiting for finally appeared. Who dares cause trouble in my casino? The owner, Versilo, swept the room with a cruel gaze before barking orders at his guards. Beat the gamblers who made the noise. Let everyone else see what happens when rules are broken. Screams followed. Watching this, guilt flooded Lillian's heart. If she hadn't brought Rain here, none of this would have happened. Then she remembered how he had protected her. Clenching her fists, she stepped forward. I won't let you scam him! Gasps rippled through the room. Everyone knew the rule. No one angered Versilo and lived peacefully afterward. Versilo turned slowly. Are you speaking to me? Yes. Lillian shouted, tears streaming down her face. Your casino has ruined countless lives. I won't stand by while you bully my big brother. He's a good person. Versilo snarled and raised his hand. Lillian closed her eyes. But the blow never came. Rain caught Versilo's wrist midair. In that instant, the system activated. Name, Versilo. Loyalty, 5. Special attributes, bloodlust, brutality. Pathetic. Versilo glared at Rain. You disapprove of my methods? Rain smiled faintly. On the contrary. Only the strong survive in this world. Then his tone hardened. So let's see who gets the last laugh. Versilo burst into laughter. You? Fight me? Rain looked at him with open disgust. You don't need to know who I am. He clapped his hands once. The casino doors burst open as armed soldiers flooded in, surrounding the room in perfect formation. Rain stood at the center, his forces lined neatly behind him. I'm already winning, he said calmly. Which means I get the final laugh. Meanwhile, city officials gathered anxiously elsewhere, all desperately seeking ways to earn Rain's favor. Even Versilo's father planned to establish ties, but he frowned, realizing his son was nowhere to be seen. Moments later, Rain entered the hall. Officials rushed forward, introducing themselves and offering gifts. Rain accepted none of them outright, merely smiling. "Since everyone is present," he said, "let's begin." Workers wheeled in a large board bearing a detailed drawing. The officials stared at it in confusion. Rain spoke calmly. "What you're looking at is the blueprint of a dam." Murmurs erupted. "A fish trap?" one noble whispered. Rain raised a hand. "Don't worry. I'll explain everything." Rain motioned to Leah. "The map." She handed it to him at once. Spreading it across the table, Rain addressed the assembled officials. "I've examined Icelanding city's geography. Every year, the river north of the city overflows, causing massive floods during the rainy season." He tapped the map with a finger. "If we construct a dam here, we can control the water flow, prevent flooding during the rains, and redirect water to irrigate crops during droughts." The room fell silent. Then came murmurs of disbelief and awe. It was an elegant solution, simple, practical, and devastatingly effective. The officials exchanged uneasy glances as realization dawned on them. This young duke was no fool. One official cleared his throat. "And what do you require from us, my lord?" Rain answered without hesitation. "Money." A heavy gloom descended on the room. One by one, the officials bowed their heads, claiming poverty. "The city treasury is empty," they lamented. "We have nothing to offer." Standing at the back was Adrian Edwin, Versilo's father. He watched silently, convinced that Rain was naive. There was no chance these officials would willingly part with their wealth. Rain smiled faintly. "You don't need to pretend," he said. "I raided a casino this afternoon and recovered roughly 50,000 gold coins." The room exploded into whispers. "That was only one casino," Rain continued calmly. "There are still others." Every official stiffened. They immediately began wondering which casino had been raided, and whether their own monthly cut would disappear. But one fact was undeniable. All the casinos in Icelanding City belonged to Adrian Edwin. Most of the officials inwardly concluded that Rain had just signed his own death warrant. Adrian's expression darkened. He had no intention of opposing Rain, until now. Touching his business changed everything. Stepping forward, Adrian spoke with icy politeness. "My lord, raiding a casino violates national law. Even a duke's son cannot act above the law." The officials eagerly echoed his words, emboldened. "He's right. The casinos operate legally. You cannot seize private businesses at will." Adrian was confident. The boy clearly didn't understand control or politics. Rain listened quietly, then spoke. "Interesting," he said. "Just moments ago, all of you claimed to be poor." Silence. "I know about your involvement in the casinos," Rain continued. "This is your final chance. Hand them over willingly, or I'll take them from you." Adrian sneered. "The Grand Duke won't be pleased if he hears of this." Others joined in. "Know your place, my lord." Rain's smile vanished. "Since you're all so fond of the law," he said coldly, "I'll teach it to you properly." He gestured sharply. Soldiers moved in, detaining every official in the room. Panic erupted. "Bring in the 2 guards from the casino," Rain ordered. Moments later, 2 men were dragged in, bound and battered. Adrian's blood ran cold. Those 2 never left Versilo's side. Rain turned to him. "Do you know them?" Adrian forced a laugh. "Of course not. Why would I?" "No reason," Rain replied lightly. "They tried to assassinate me this afternoon." The room froze. "They claimed they were backed by someone important in the city," Rain added. He gestured. "Untie them." Terror spread among the officials. If the men spoke, Adrian was finished. Adrian knew it too. In a flash, he drew a knife and lunged, slashing both men down in a brutal display. Blood splattered the floor. Turning calmly to Rain, Adrian bowed. "I was overcome with righteous fury. You may punish me as you see fit." Rain studied him for a moment. "Impressive," Rain said. "Such a strong sense of justice." Adrian exhaled subtly. "I merely did what had to be done." Rain nodded, then spoke again. "Bring in the true culprit," he ordered. "Let's see if there are more impressive nobles among us." The doors opened. Versilo was dragged into the hall, kicking and screaming. "My father is the greatest noble in this city. You'll all regret this." Adrian's eyes widened in horror. So that was why he hadn't seen his son. Versilo screamed the moment he noticed the lifeless bodies of his servants sprawled across the floor. "What did you do?" he roared at Rain. "Why did you kill them?" His eyes burned with hatred as he struggled against his restraints. "The moment I'm released, I'll torture you myself. I'll make you beg before I kill you." Rain's lips curved into a faint smile. "How interesting," he said lightly. "You're threatening to torture and kill me, in front of witnesses." Versilo snarled. "I'm untouchable in this city. You're already dead." Rain laughed openly. "Brave. Truly brave. You might be the boldest man I've met today. He stepped aside. Only then did Versilo notice his father standing among the officials. His laughter grew louder. You're finished, Ryan. Do you know who's standing behind you? Before he could finish, Adrian's voice thundered across the hall. Shut up! Kneel! Versilo froze. Confusion washed over his face. Father, what are you? Adrian didn't let him finish. He shoved Versilo to the ground, forcing him onto his knees. Then, without hesitation, Adrian turned to Rain and dropped his own head low. My lord, he pleaded. My son is young and ignorant. Spare him. I beg you. Versilo's world tilted. Adrian continued desperately. I will give you everything, my wealth, my businesses, everything I own. Just let him live. Only then did realization crash down on Versilo. Just yesterday, his father had warned him that the Duke's son was arriving, and urged him to stay close to him. Fear seized his heart. He lifted his head slowly. Why, you're the Grand Duke's son? Rain glanced at the soldiers surrounding the room. I thought that would have been obvious. Versilo's arrogance shattered completely. He bowed his head, slamming it against the floor. Forgive me. I made a terrible mistake. Adrian joined him, kneeling beside his son. Please, my lord. Give our family one more chance. We swear loyalty to you. Rain regarded them silently. Atone, he finally said. Hand over everything you obtained illegally. That's the only way your lives are guaranteed. Adrian bowed deeply. Thank you, my lord. Thank you for this mercy. Then, boldly, Adrian spoke again. There is something you should know, he said. City Lord Eldritch has contacted external forces. He intends to betray your father. Gasps rippled through the hall. A rebellion? Rain's expression darkened instantly. You dare spout such filth? Rain shouted, his voice echoing with fury. After I've spared your lives? He turned sharply. Execute them. All of them. Adrian's face drained of color. But City Lord Eldritch smiled inwardly. So the boy really was foolish. Eldritch stepped forward and bowed deeply. My lord, I am loyal beyond doubt. I would never even consider rebellion. Rain studied him, then smiled warmly. I believe you. Unseen by anyone else, the system activated. Name, Eldritch. Trait, greed high. Later that night, Rain sat alone in his office. The nobles' donations totaled over 100,000 gold coins, nearly 2 years' worth of tax revenue. Leah entered quietly, setting down a cup of black tea. Young master, what about what Adrian said? If Eldritch truly plans to rebel, you're in danger. Rain gestured for her to relax. I know. Then why wait? She pressed. Because Eldritch hasn't shown his hand yet. Rain replied calmly. And I don't know who he's working for. He took a sip of tea. I'm exposed. My enemies are hidden. One wrong move, and the city erupts into chaos. Rain leaned back. So for now, I'll let him believe I'm clueless. Elsewhere, City Lord Eldritch met with Malcolm, the head of the Magical Guild. There's no need to rush, Eldritch said smoothly. The boy is young, eager to impress his father. Malcolm frowned. Even so, you gain nothing by siding with him. Even the Grand Duke treats our guild with respect. Eldritch said nothing. But inside, he was pleased. Somehow, Rain had already turned the guild against himself. Malcolm stood abruptly. I'll speak with him personally. He stormed out. Eldritch smiled slowly. Rain had just kicked a hornet's nest, and soon, the entire city would turn against him. The following morning, Leah entered Rain's chambers with a composed expression. Young master, she said. The guild master, Malcolm, wishes to see you. Rain blinked. Malcolm? He had no recollection of the name. Stepping out of his office, Rain immediately spotted the man waiting for him, a robed figure radiating authority and irritation. The moment their eyes met, the man erupted. Why have you insulted the Wizards Guild? Malcolm roared. Rain frowned in genuine confusion. When exactly did I insult the Wizards Guild? Don't play dumb! Malcolm snapped, thrusting a letter forward. This recruitment notice, you approved it yourself. Rain skimmed the document. It was the notice for dam construction recruitment. His gaze paused on a single line. Applicants with wizard affiliations will not be accepted. I did send this out, Rain admitted calmly. But I don't see where the insult lies. Malcolm scoffed. You explicitly barred wizards from participation. That alone is a provocation. Rain looked genuinely surprised. Wizards take physically demanding labor jobs? Malcolm's eyes narrowed. Give me a reasonable explanation, or I will ensure no wizard ever assists you. Before responding, Rain silently summoned the system. Name, Malcolm. Loyalty, high. Core trait, knowledge seeker. Rain's expression softened slightly. So he was being pushed. There's been a misunderstanding, Rain said evenly. I never intended to disrespect the Wizards Guild. He raised a finger. There are 3 reasons I excluded wizards from the dam project. First, he continued, mana is limited. Even if every wizard worked together, it wouldn't be enough to meet the construction deadline. Second cost. Hiring one wizard costs the same as hiring 10 laborers. Malcolm's lips tightened. And third, Rain said calmly, most wizards already live comfortably under guild protection. Civilians don't. As a ruler, Rain concluded, I must prioritize those who need work the most. Malcolm frowned. You forget that this world is governed by magic. Those without magical affinity are beneath wizards. Rain nodded slowly. You're not wrong. Then his gaze hardened. But I don't accept that. He leaned forward slightly. I want a world where civilians aren't treated as inferior. Malcolm's voice dropped dangerously. Take back those words, unless you wish to make an enemy of the Wizards Guild. Rain didn't flinch. Mind your tone, he said coldly, or I'll order Leah to cut your throat. In an instant, Leah stepped forward, a blade resting lightly against Malcolm's neck. Malcolm froze. Hey, are you insane? Rain's voice remained calm. I'm not bluffing. The law permits this. Test my patience, Rain added quietly. And we'll see which side the court favors. For the first time, fear crept into Malcolm's eyes. Spare me, he begged. Please. Rain noticed something curious. Even now, Malcolm's loyalty hadn't wavered. So he was truly being used. Rain sighed. Leah. She withdrew the blade at once. At that moment, the system chimed. You have used scan on 10 individuals. Novice quest complete. Reward granted. New quest unlocked. Obtain 5 high-stat characters. Rain smiled faintly as he reviewed the reward. This was going well. After leaving Rain's estate, Malcolm encountered City Lord Eldritch. Well? Eldritch asked smoothly. How did it go? Malcolm scowled. Don't bother me with that. He didn't listen to a word I said. He chased me out. Eldritch chuckled. Then I have an idea that will change his mind. Malcolm frowned. Explain. When the laborers refuse to work, Eldritch said calmly, Rain will have no choice but to come begging for help. Malcolm stiffened. Why would they refuse? He's paying them well. Eldritch sneered. Peasants are lazy. Once they lie around long enough, they'll disappoint him. I won't sabotage him, Malcolm said firmly. My only grievance is his refusal to hire wizards. Eldritch's smile thinned. They're useless trash anyway. You really believe they'll commit to building a dam? Silence followed. Then Malcolm exhaled slowly. Fine, he said. We'll try it. Not long after, a new notice appeared on the public board. Dam construction recruitment. The benefits listed were almost unbelievable. 3 meals a day. Daily wages paid at sundown. No delays. No deductions. Fair treatment guaranteed. The crowd gathered quickly, murmuring in disbelief. This has to be a trap. Another noble's trick. We've been fooled too many times. Years of broken promises had hardened them. Trash nobles always dangled hope before tightening the noose. Just as the murmurs turned hostile, a sharp voice cut through the noise. Enough. Lillian stepped forward, her eyes blazing. Don't you dare slander Lord Rain's name. The crowd stared at her. He promised me, she continued firmly, that he would make our lives better. Laughter erupted. Listen to her. She's spouting nonsense. Someone sneered. Maybe she's fallen for him. Lillian ignored them all. Turning to the attendant, she said clearly, My father and I would like to apply. The attendant glanced at her, then shook his head. Your father is accepted. You are not. What? Why? Lillian protested. I'm strong enough. The Lord's orders. The man replied calmly. No one under 18. If we hire you and Lord Rain finds out, he added, we'll be punished. Reluctantly, Lillian fell silent. The attendant then turned to her father. You will work 8 hours a day. 3 meals provided. 10 copper coins per day, paid at sundown. Place your handprint here, he said, sliding over the document. Report to the site tomorrow. Lillian gripped her father's hand. Work hard. He nodded solemnly. I will. I won't gamble again. I swear I won't let Lord Rain down. He hugged her tightly. Stay home with your mother. Her illness, she can't work. The attendant paused. Your wife is ill? Yes, the man replied quickly. She's been sick for a long time. The attendant smiled. She won't need to work, he said. Lord Rain has ordered that workers may temporarily relocate to the workers' quarters with their families. The man froze. Relocate. Temporary housing. The attendant explained. Once the dam is finished, you're free to return home. The man collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Thank you, thank you. The attendant helped him up. Someone will guide you and your daughter to choose a place. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Hope rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Did you hear that? Maybe it's real. They're even housing families. In moments, the skepticism vanished. People rushed forward, forming a long line to sign up. For the first time in years, they believed. Meanwhile, in Rain's chambers, the system chimed. Congratulations. Reward obtained, lithium iron phosphate battery blueprint. Rain stared at the blueprint. What am I supposed to do with this? No generators. No power grid. Is the system expecting lightning to strike me? He muttered. His smile faded as his thoughts returned to the new quest. 5 high-stat characters. Leah was already near her limit. Training her further was pointless. Looks like I'll have to scout the city again. Just then, Leah entered. Lillian wishes to see you. Rain frowned. Send her in. Lillian rushed inside, visibly upset. Something's wrong, she said urgently. The workers, they're slacking off. Rain stiffened. What? At the site, I saw my father resting, she continued. When I asked why, he said he felt exhausted since morning. He couldn't even understand his own body. And it's not just him, she added. Everyone feels the same. Lillian clenched her fists. I yelled at them. Asked why they were wasting time when you've given them everything. They swore they weren't lazy, she said bitterly. They said something feels wrong. One worker had spoken up. Maybe we're just not used to working anymore. He'd suggested. If we rest today, tomorrow will be better. Lillian scoffed. I told them they were lying, she said angrily. There's no disease that makes everyone lazy at once. Rain arrived at the construction site just as murmurs of fatigue rippled through the workers. Without wasting time, he focused on Lillian's father. Rock. The system window appeared. Rain's eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. Buried within Rock's status was a faint but unmistakable mark. A curse. Rain turned to Lillian immediately. They're not sick. She froze. What? They're cursed. Rain knelt, pressing his palm against the ground. There's something buried beneath the site. A strange stone. It's emitting dark energy and draining the workers. Lillian's face paled. Rain inhaled slowly. I was planning to wait until construction fully began, but I don't have a choice anymore. System, he commanded. Activate prospecting. The skill surged to life. Prospecting activated. Analyzing geological formations. Skin radius, 10 kilometers. Rain waited. Moments passed. No oil. No valuable metals. His lips tightened in disappointment, until the system flagged an anomaly. There. Rain pointed to a specific spot. Dig there. Rock wiped sweat from his brow and nodded. I can still dig, my lord. Even if I'm tired. Only moments later, his shovel struck something solid. A black crystal emerged from the dirt, pulsing faintly, threads of dark energy leaking into the air. Leah stiffened. I couldn't sense that, she muttered, staring at the stone. The magic is too faint. Rain said nothing. Box it, he ordered. As the crystal was sealed away, Rain turned to Leah. What happens to people who are cursed? They usually go to the church, she replied. A priest can remove it. Or a high-level wizard from the Wizards Guild. Rain's gaze sharpened at the last words. Lillian, he said. Bring your father. We're going to the church. Her voice trembled. Is he really cursed? Rain met her eyes. Yes. And whoever did this won't walk away untouched. The church doors opened quietly. A saintess greeted them with a calm smile. Before speaking, Rain silently activated the system. Investigating. Name Mayura. Race self. Occupation saintess. Loyalty high. An elf. Rain noted. Ayura bowed gracefully. How may I assist you? My worker has been cursed, Rain said, gesturing to Rock. Can you help? Let me see. Ayura placed her hand on Rock's chest. Divine light shimmered softly. Her expression turned serious. Yes. This is a curse. Can you remove it? She didn't hesitate. A sphere of radiant energy burst from her palm, enveloping Rock completely. The darkness shattered. Rock gasped, then straightened. A wide smile spread across his face. I feel incredible. Like I've been reborn. He bowed deeply. My lord, I can return to work immediately. No, Rain interrupted calmly. Not yet. We deal with the cause first. Rain then revealed the black crystal. Do you know this? Ayura studied it carefully. A dark magic crystal. Very common. A large amount of mana was stored inside. So it's lethal? It could be, she said. With that much magic, the caster could have killed dozens. This was mild. More of a prank. Rain's eyes darkened. Is it difficult to make? No, Ayura replied. It can be created daily and hidden easily. Rain exhaled sharply. Malcolm. Ayura continued. I know about the dam project. It benefits the people. And hiring so many workers has reduced the burden on the church. Rain nodded slowly, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. Is there a way to cleanse the entire site? Ayura shook her head. Not reliably. If new crystals are placed each day, you won't always find them in time. And digging constantly would halt construction. Rain fell silent. Then Ayura spoke again. There is someone who might help. Rain looked up. Who? She's unusual. Ayura admitted. But capable. She handed him a note. Lady Selena, former president of the Wizards Guild. Rain's jaw tightened. So it comes back to the guild after all. The moment Rain arrived at the address. Move! Leah shoved him aside. An explosion tore through the air. The door blasted off its hinges, debris scattering across the courtyard. Rain rose slowly, eyes fixed ahead. A woman stood amidst crackling mana, completely unconcerned with the destruction around her. She was testing spells. Dangerous ones. State your business, Selena said without looking. I'm busy. I need help stopping a cursed sabotage at a construction site, Rain said calmly. She scoffed. Not interested. I'm researching magical devices. Devices? Rain asked. Wands? She laughed loudly. Stop talking nonsense. Leah stepped forward, eyes cold. Watch your tone when speaking to my lord. Selena finally turned. Her gaze locked onto Leah, and widened. Interesting. She smiled sharply. Your affinity is exceptional. She stepped closer. Stay here. Become my apprentice. Leah tensed. Selena chuckled. And once I finish my research, I'll help your lord. The tension between Leah and Selena ignited instantly. Leah stepped forward, eyes sharp, clearly ready to teach Selena a lesson in respect. The air crackled, not with magic, but with hostility. Rain raised a hand. Leah, calm down. We're here to ask for help, not start a war. Leah reluctantly stepped back. Rain turned his attention to the cluttered table filled with strange metallic tools, cracked crystals, and half-destroyed devices. Did you make all of these? Selena glanced at him, surprised. You can tell what they are. Rain nodded slightly. She scoffed. Then you should also know, they're all failures. She picked up a scorched metal cylinder. I'm trying to create a device that can store my electric magic. The word electric caught Rain's full attention. You're trying to store electricity? He asked again, just to be certain. Yes, Selena replied impatiently. And everything explodes. Now leave. I need to focus. Rain paused for a moment before speaking. I know a way to store electricity. Selena froze. Then she laughed. You're joking. I'm not, Rain said calmly. But if I help you succeed, will you help me? Her eyes narrowed as she studied him. If you truly can, I'll help you deal with Malcolm. I'll even make the other wizards listen to you. She leaned closer. But if you waste my time, your safety is your own problem. Deal, Rain replied without hesitation. The three of them stepped into the yard. Rain's lips curled into a small smile. He had been worried about finding a source of electricity, but fate had just delivered one to him. He pulled out the lithium iron phosphate battery blueprint given by the system. His plan was simple: use the wizards as temporary generators until he could construct hydraulic power systems. Not long after, the first battery was complete. Rain handed the compact device to Selena. She eyed it suspiciously. This thing is going to explode the moment I touch it. It won't, Rain said confidently. Its capacity is about 180 watt-hours per kilogram. Try it. Selena hesitated, then extended her hand. A thin stream of lightning flowed from her fingertips into the battery. Nothing happened. No explosion. No cracks. No smoke. Her eyes widened. Rain smiled. Finished already? That wasn't even close to its limit. Her pride flared. Watch closely. She released a stronger surge of electricity. Then an even greater one. The air buzzed violently as arcs of lightning danced around her body. Minutes later, Selena staggered and collapsed to one knee, completely drained. The battery, however, remained perfectly intact. Rain checked the indicator. 87% capacity. His eyes lit up. At that level of stored power, the energy could theoretically run a vehicle for thousands of kilometers. He looked at Selena with newfound appreciation. A living power station. Selena panted, staring at the battery in disbelief. It actually worked. Rain tapped the device, letting a small electric spark jump between his fingers. Selena jolted upright. You can use electricity too? Rain shrugged lightly. Using it is the simplest part. I can also make it so everyone in the city can use it. She frowned. Magic isn't something ordinary people can just learn. Rain only smiled. I have devices far more impressive than this battery. Work with me, and I'll change this city, for everyone. For the first time, Selena looked uncertain and intrigued. Meanwhile, far across the city, Malcolm lounged comfortably in his chambers, a smug smile on his face. He was still waiting for Rain to come crawling back, begging for help. Suddenly, the door burst open. Selena stepped inside. Malcolm nearly jumped out of his seat. Her presence alone was enough to drain the color from his face. She walked toward him slowly, eyes cold. You've overstepped your boundaries, going against Rain. Malcolm forced an awkward smile. I don't know what you're talking about. I would never. Before he could finish, Selina grabbed him by the collar and pressed a hand against his chest. A faint surge of electricity crackled in her palm. Confess, she said flatly. What did you do at the construction site? Malcolm's bravado shattered instantly. He had no desire to experience her anger firsthand. I'll talk, he blurted. He admitted that he had gathered the association's mages and convinced them that Rain had insulted the Wizards Guild. He ordered them to create cursed crystals and secretly teleport them underground at the dam site. The crystals drained the workers' energy, making them appear lazy and incompetent. His goal was simple: force Rain to come and apologize so they could cooperate, on Malcolm's terms. That's all I wanted, Malcolm insisted nervously. I had no other intentions. Selina scoffed. You were being used, fool. Malcolm blinked in confusion. Recall the mages. No. He obeyed without hesitation. Selina contacted Rain shortly afterward, informing him that the issue with the Mage Association had been resolved. Rain thanked her calmly. Do you want me to deal with Eldritch as well? Selina asked. I can make him disappear. No need, Rain replied. I want him active. He'll lead me to whoever he's working for. Selina smiled. You really do have everything planned out. Before ending the call, she added cheerfully. Let me know when you're ready to start that project you mentioned. I will, Rain said. And have the mages start charging the batteries. Elsewhere, Eldritch stood before a masked figure in a dim chamber. Rain has taken control of the Mage Association, Eldritch reported. What should I do? The masked man chuckled. You worry too much. Selina is the only real threat among them. Focus on the dam. He leaned forward. If that project succeeds, the city will prosper. And that is the last thing we want. Eldritch smirked. The dam won't be a problem. I've already set a trap. He explained that he had persuaded the nobles controlling the grain supply to double their prices. Even if they weren't loyal to him, they were loyal to profit. Rain had forced them to give up money earlier, but Eldritch promised to help them recover their losses behind the scenes. Rain doesn't have enough funds to sustain the project, Eldritch concluded confidently. In the marketplace, Lillian argued fiercely with a grain seller. The price doubled overnight? She shouted. Buy it or leave it, the seller replied coldly. I don't care. Lillian clenched her fists, remembering her promise to Rain to secure grain at the lowest price possible. Aren't you afraid Rain will take action? The merchant laughed. We're businessmen. What can he do? This is a golden opportunity. He shoved her aside, nearly knocking her to the ground. Not far away, Ayura overheard the news and grew furious. If prices stay like this, we won't survive winter. She handed her sister a pouch of coins. Take this. Bribe the guards if you must. Her sister stared in shock. That's far more than usual. Just do it, Ayura snapped. But before the pouch could disappear into her pocket, a hand snatched it midair. Leah. Both sisters froze. Then Rain stepped forward. Leah tossed the pouch to him. Rain waited in his hand before looking at Ayura. Interested in making a deal? Ayura narrowed her eyes. What kind of business would you possibly have with me? Relax, Rain said calmly. I'm talking about food supplies. She scoffed. You don't look powerful enough to fix this situation. Rain tilted his head slightly. And why do you think I'm powerless? Apparently, the food supply of the entire city was controlled by 4 major noble families. These families had held power for over a century, firmly dictating grain prices without opposition. Ayura explained that Rain's aggressive tactics at the previous banquet might have intimidated a few minor nobles, but those people were nothing more than small fry. The real power lay elsewhere. Rain asked if she knew the city well. I've lived here for 120 years, she replied calmly. She went on to say that Rain's move against the Edwin family had already closed the door to peaceful negotiation. Between wars and recurring natural disasters, food shortages had become a yearly crisis. Her people, she admitted, had little chance of surviving the coming winter if grain prices kept rising. Rain simply smiled. The price of grain will become cheaper than it has ever been. Elsewhere, the heads of the 4 dominant families were gathered in a private meeting room, celebrating. Profits had skyrocketed in just a few days. Wine glasses clinked as they toasted their success. Their butler entered nervously. Lord Rain has requested your presence at a banquet. The room fell silent. Worst-case scenarios immediately filled their minds. One of the lords turned to Augustus, head of the Klein family. The man who had united them, and admitted his fear. Augustus waved him off. Eldritch already confirmed it. Raising grain prices is completely legal. As long as we stand together, we're untouchable. He smirked. The price of grain depends on our mood. Even the Emperor can't interfere, let alone a young upstart like Rain. The others nodded eagerly. If they followed Augustus, they could live in luxury for the next 100 years. The worst we'll do, Augustus added, is drop the price by 5 coppers to appease him. Then his tone hardened. Anyone who backs out will face consequences. The others quickly pledged loyalty. With the decision made, Augustus suggested they change clothes before attending the banquet. That night, the 4 arrived at the hall dressed in deliberately ragged clothing, trying to appear poor and harmless. Rain watched them enter and nearly laughed. They really think this will work. He ordered the kitchen to begin preparing food for his esteemed guests. His first question was simple. Strange. Why do the men who control the city's grain look so impoverished? Augustus immediately stepped forward. We heard about your dam project and are willing to contribute. Another noble chimed in, claiming they had donated large sums and were already selling grain at the lowest possible price. Leah's jaw tightened. The lies were shameless. Rain let them finish, then smiled politely. I appreciate your support. In fact, I invited you here to discuss grain business. Augustus sighed theatrically. We know you're short on funds, but selling at 2 gold coins per sack is already a huge loss for us. Rain leaned back. You misunderstand. I'm not asking you to lower prices. They blinked. I want you to raise them. Rain continued calmly. 4 gold coins per sack. Silence. Augustus stared at him, stunned. Rain repeated himself, then added, I'll be taking a 30% commission from the profit. Understanding dawned instantly. This was no naive youth. This was a shark smiling in human skin. The 4 nobles exchanged glances, excitement replacing fear. Things had just become far more profitable, and far easier. Some even regretted not approaching him sooner. Still, Augustus hesitated. If we raise prices without an official decree, it could backfire. When will you announce it? Rain produced a stamped document bearing his family seal. It goes public after this meeting. Then his eyes sharpened. Disobey me, and I'll treat you the same way I treated the Edwin family. They smiled and promised cooperation. On the way home, one lord suggested informing Eldritch about the sudden shift. Augustus smashed his cup against the carriage wall. The more people who know, the less we earn. He snapped. Rain wants us in his plans so he can profit too. This stays between us. Another noble admitted the deal felt too perfect, but still pledged loyalty. Augustus gave the final order. Buy out every small merchant's grain stock before the announcement. We're about to make more money than we ever dreamed. The next morning, Ayura stormed into Rain's office, furious. Why are you colluding with those crooked merchants? She was seconds away from exploding when Lillian stepped in front of her. Please calm down, Lillian said. Rain already promised the prices would fall. She looked at Ayura with firm confidence. You have to trust him. He definitely has a plan. Ayura confronted Rain, asking if he truly intended to raise the price of grain. Rain calmly assured her that she had nothing to fear. The price, he said, would not remain high for long. Within half a month, the entire grain market would collapse on its own. Ayura scoffed, calling him inexperienced and reckless. She insisted that doubling the price would only doom the people to starvation. Rain countered her logic with a simple truth. Whether the price was 2 gold coins or 4, the common people still could not afford it. The outcome was the same. Only the time it took to reach disaster differed. His goal, he revealed, was not to force the merchants to lower their prices, but to make them lose everything. 7 days later, Rain was giving Selena a lecture when Leah arrived to inform him that the elf had come to see him. As expected, Aurora had come to complain again. The price of grain had now risen to 7 gold coins per bag. Rain asked Leah how many days it had been since the price hike began. 7, she replied. Rain smiled. It was time to end the game. Aurora grew furious, demanding an explanation and even threatening to sever ties if Rain continued deceiving her. In a calm voice, Rain finally decided to reveal the truth. He admitted that he had hidden his intentions earlier so her anger would appear genuine and not alert the nobles. Then he asked her a simple question. What was the city lacking the most right now? Aurora couldn't answer. Rain gave her the answer himself, a merchant who actually sold grain. He explained that greed was the easiest human weakness to manipulate. Once rumors spread that grain prices had soared to 4 gold coins, merchants from all over the empire rushed into the city, hoping for enormous profit. The 4 noble families, blinded by the same greed, bought even more grain, unintentionally flooding the city with supply. In their pursuit of wealth, they had turned Icelanding into the grain capital of the empire without realizing it. Rain then handed Leah a note and ordered her to spread its message across the city. The church, under Ayura's authority, would sell its reserve grain at 1 gold coin per bag because she disagreed with Rain's methods. Ayura was stunned. She protested that she did not have enough grain unless she was expected to sacrifice her people's winter reserves. Selena intervened, urging her to trust Rain. The more she delayed, the more they would all lose. Reluctantly, Ayura agreed. At the same time, Rain instructed Selena and the Mage Association to seal the city. No one was to leave. Leah, growing anxious, asked what would happen if the merchants simply waited it out and Ayura sold all her grain. Rain explained that there were two kinds of schemes: secret plots, which could be avoided, and open plans, which were impossible to escape. The merchants, driven by greed, would never risk waiting once they learned the price could crash overnight. Panic would force them to sell. Soon, news reached Augustus and the other nobleheads that the church was selling grain for 1 gold coin per bag. Panic spread among them. Some argued the church couldn't possibly have enough supply, but Augustus ordered his men to buy as much as they could anyway. The church was instantly overwhelmed by buyers. Ayura announced that 10,000 bags had been sent by the Pope, with more arriving the next day. Soldiers publicly confirmed her claim. Though Ayura worried about the consequences if the Pope discovered the deception, the announcement struck terror into the merchants' hearts. One merchant quickly calculated his costs: purchase price, transport fees, storage expenses. Even if he sold immediately at the church's price, he would barely make a profit. The realization spread like wildfire. Greed had drawn them in. Fear would now drive them to ruin. Without wasting a second, one merchant loudly announced that he was selling his grain for 95 silver coins per bag. The crowd instantly swarmed him, desperate to buy before the price changed again. Another merchant, furious at the sudden undercutting, declared that if a market crash was inevitable, he would make sure it happened faster. He dropped his price to 90 silver. Within minutes, others followed. 80 silver, then lower still. The market began to spiral. From his balcony, Rain quietly observed the chaos below. Selena stood beside him, impressed. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had predicted. Rain remarked that she was witnessing human nature in its purest form. In a panic market, selling even a moment later than others meant heavier losses, so everyone rushed to sell first, even if it meant sacrificing profit. Selena wondered aloud if the price might fall to 50 silver coins at this rate. Rain only smiled and told her she was underestimating the merchant's greed. By the time Augustus and the noble families began selling their hoarded grain, grain itself would become the cheapest commodity in the city. Selena found that hard to believe. Augustus and the others had bought their supplies at the highest prices, and during the banquet they had appeared completely united. Rain laughed at her optimism. Unity, he explained, was fragile when profit was involved. None of them would willingly stand back while the others escaped losses first. Meanwhile, at Augustus's residence, reports arrived that traveling merchants from outside the city were dumping their grain at rock-bottom prices, 75 silver coins and falling. One noble dismissed the news, insisting they still controlled the city's grain. But Augustus paused, thinking it through, and the truth struck him. Rain had orchestrated everything. Rain had spread rumors of soaring grain prices, luring merchants from neighboring towns. Once the city overflowed with supply, he used the church's authority to crash the market. Panic did the rest. Out-of-town traders were now forced to sell at losses just to salvage something. Augustus admitted that Rain had used a masterful, if ruthless, strategy. Still, Augustus claimed he had a counterplan. The nobles leaned in anxiously. His idea was simple: hoard the grain. The current supply, he argued, would only feed the population for a few months. If they held out until desperation returned, they could sell again at inflated prices. But he warned them, if even one of them broke ranks and started selling, they would all suffer. They nodded in agreement. Yet the moment one noble left Augustus's house, he secretly planned to sell his entire stock before anyone else could move. The others thought the same. Even Augustus, once alone, ordered his retainer to begin selling immediately. Trust had collapsed faster than the market itself. Later, Rain summoned Ayura and showed her stacks of grain sacks filling the warehouse. She was stunned. The more they sold, the more grain seemed to appear. Rain explained the simple economics. They had sold at the peak and were now buying at the bottom. The difference alone had already earned them immense profit. While they were still discussing the numbers, Lillian rushed in with fresh news. The price had fallen yet again. 3 bags of grain now cost a single gold coin. Rain turned to Ayura with a calm smile, reminding her that she had once doubted him. If she purchased now, she could secure even more reserves than before. Then Rain shifted the conversation to the second phase of his plan. He asked whether she was ready to discuss a deal with the elves. Confused, Ayura asked what he intended. Rain replied that he was prepared to supply everything the elven tribe might need, from basic grain to vast stretches of land. Such a decision, Ayura said, could only be made by the elven queen herself. Rain had no objections. He simply asked her to arrange a meeting. Ayura immediately drafted a letter and entrusted it to Yuria for delivery to the elven queen. Watching events unfold, Rain felt satisfied. Once the crisis ended, the noble families would be too weakened to stir trouble for a long time. The Mage Guild was already under his influence, and soon, he intended, the church would be as well. At the moment, the only leverage Eldritch truly holds over the city is the military and the tax system. Rain understands that seizing the army outright would only make Eldritch more defensive and unpredictable. Instead, he realizes he needs a quieter approach, one that allows him to infiltrate the military from within rather than confront it head-on. He is deep in thought when Leah enters and gently pats his head, urging him to rest. Before he can respond, a man storms into the room, loudly complaining about the soldiers' behavior in the city. Rain rises calmly and walks over. The man demands to know who he is, and Rain simply replies that he is someone interested in doing business with him. Meanwhile, Lillian has been tasked with transporting goods to the Elven lands. At the city gate, however, her convoy is stopped by a squad of soldiers who begin smashing her containers under the excuse of inspection. Finding nothing illegal, their commander casually demands a toll fee if she wants to pass. Furious, Lillian points out that they have already damaged her cargo. The commander shrugs and gives her a choice: pay or turn back. Just as she is about to argue further, a voice from the carriage tells her to pay. Reluctantly, she produces 1 coin, only for the soldier to sneer and claim that Rain has increased the toll to 5 coins. Lillian is stunned. The goods she carries are worth less than that. The soldier remains unmoved, repeating that she can either pay or leave. Knowing resistance would only delay the mission, she hands over the 5 coins, silently fuming at the misuse of Rain's name. She is certain the soldiers will regret this once Rain's larger plans unfold. Inside the carriage, Rain sits with the merchant who had entered earlier. Concealing his identity, Rain criticizes Rain for raising the tolls, but the merchant immediately protests. To Rain's surprise, the man defends him passionately, insisting the blame lies with corrupt soldiers, not their leader. He recounts how Rain's grain strategy saved countless citizens, even though it cost merchants like himself heavy losses. For the first time, he says, he has seen a ruler who truly cares for the people. If he ever met Rain, he would pledge everything to serve him. Rain cautiously mentions the accusations and rumors surrounding his name, but the merchant dismisses them, claiming the corrupt noble families deserve their downfall. When Rain asks about the Edwin family, the merchant lowers his voice. Everyone knows them, he says, but not the truth. Their wealth is rumored to come from casinos, yet their real business is human trafficking. The revelation shocks Rain. Rage surges through him as he realizes that while he is trying to grow the city's population and stability, families like Edwin are tearing it apart from within. He quickly concludes that controlling the guards must become his top priority. If internal disorder spreads, outside forces will exploit the chaos without hesitation. Soon, the carriage reaches another gate, where more soldiers demand a second toll. Lillian argues that they already paid at the city entrance, but the guard claims this is a separate border fort fee. Frustration boils over as she demands the price: 1 full gold coin. Before she can protest further, Rain calmly instructs her from inside the carriage to pay. The guard, realizing there are passengers inside, orders everyone to step out for inspection. Rain exits gracefully, inviting the soldier to proceed. The guard hesitates, unsettled by Rain's composed demeanor and the presence of his maid. He asks who Rain is, but ultimately the soldiers fail to recognize him. Instead, they recognize the merchant, Trist. Trist, however, is far from pleased to see them. He knows exactly who they are, former mountain bandits who later aligned themselves with the Edwin family, helping transport kidnapped humans. The Edwin family's influence is what elevated them to their current positions. The soldier, annoyed by Trist's attitude, recalls a previous encounter and accuses him of underpaying tariffs. Without warning, he slaps Trist and demands compensation for that past mistake, threatening to detain him otherwise. Trist protests that he paid the exact amount requested before. The soldier smirks and replies that there may have been no shortage of money then, but there certainly is now. He adds coldly that he would have allowed the carriage to pass, but since Trist is inside, the price has changed. 5 gold coins, or no one leaves. Rain finally steps forward, stating calmly that the toll is excessive and asking why, if taxes are so high, the city's revenue remains so poor. The soldier is taken aback that nobody would dare question him. He is about to strike Rain when his attention shifts to Leah. Her beauty distracts him instantly, and his expression turns lecherous. Sensing trouble, Trist quickly intervenes and announces that he will pay the 5 gold coins as long as the soldiers stop harassing his people. The guard snatches the pouch without hesitation. Then he turns back to Leah, asking where she lives and reaching out to touch her. Before he can lay a finger on her, Rain grips his wrist tightly and calls him a disgrace. Enraged, the soldier swings at Rain, but Leah moves first. In a flash, she cuts him down. Rain's voice turns cold. He orders Leah to eliminate the remaining corrupt guards and declares that the honest soldiers who accompanied them will assume control of the fort. Panic spreads. The soldiers attempt to flee, but Leah pursues them with ruthless efficiency, cutting them down one by one. Rain inspects their abilities afterward and finds them utterly lacking, untrained, undisciplined, and unworthy of their posts. He recalls his father's warning before he left home: there was hostile territory nearby, and stirring conflict could invite disaster. Now, however, Rain feels relieved. Discovering this rot early may have saved him from a far greater defeat against the Empire later. Just as Leah is about to finish the last of them, a commanding voice echoes across the fort, demanding to know who is causing chaos at the city's border. The remaining soldiers brighten with relief. Their savior has arrived, General Caesar. Rain studies him quietly, assessing his strength. Caesar is undeniably talented, but the aura around him reeks of disloyalty. Rain approaches and asks if he is Caesar of the Hulkier family, the one whose brother serves in Priya's territory. Caesar confirms, suspicious of how this stranger knows such details. Rain replies that Priya Edgar is his elder sister. The realization strikes like thunder. The soldiers suddenly understand. The man before them is Rain, the youngest son of the Grand Duke. Panic sets in. Caesar, too, remembers a letter from his brother warning him that Rain would soon arrive and that his safety must be guaranteed. But another memory surfaces, Eldritch visiting him a month earlier with a chest of gold, whispering promises of influence and respect. Voices had long told Caesar that the Duke never recognized his talent, that being stationed in this remote city was an insult. Those resentments had made it easy to accept Eldritch's money. After a moment of inner conflict, Caesar draws his sword and denounces Rain as an impostor. He orders his troops to kill him, promising rewards. Leah's eyes burn with anger as she asks if he is truly rebelling against the Duke. Even some soldiers hesitate, warning Caesar that a wrong step could doom their families. Caesar dismisses their fears, insisting that the man before them is a fraud and reminding them that Rain destroyed the Edwin family. He tempts them further, claiming that delivering Rain's head to the Northern Empire would secure them wealth and freedom. The soldiers waver, torn between loyalty and greed. Finally, profit wins. They align themselves with Caesar. Caesar asks Rain if he has any last words. Rain offers him one final chance to repent. Caesar answers by ordering the charge. Leah prepares for battle, tearing part of her skirt to free her movements. She lunges forward, her blade flashing. One soldier falls with his throat cut before he can react. Another attempts to ambush her, but she twists away mid-step and drops him with a precise strike. In the chaos, she spots a soldier rushing Rain with a spear. Without hesitation, she hurls her dagger, striking him down just before the weapon can reach its mark. Rain stands unmoved, his composure unshaken. He looks up at Caesar once more and repeats his offer of mercy. Caesar refuses and raises the bounty. 1,000 gold coins for Rain's head. Greed ignites the remaining soldiers, and they surge forward with renewed ferocity. Yet Leah remains far beyond their level, cutting through them with effortless precision. Realizing brute force is failing, Caesar calls upon his mages. They unleash volleys of icy arrows at Leah. She kicks several aside, but the lingering frost seeps into her legs, freezing her in place. Seeing her immobilized, Caesar orders his men to rush Rain. Before they can close in, Rain calls out to Leah, telling her to leap the moment she can move. He tosses her a heavy hammer to use as leverage. She grips it, forcing her body upward with sheer will. At the same time, Rain draws out an electrical battery, an experimental weapon, and watches calmly, ready to reveal just how devastating its power can be. Rain calmly removes the lid of the device and drops the cable onto the ground. Instantly, electric current surges through the area. The soldiers who had rushed forward are struck by the unseen force, their bodies convulsing as intense pain courses through them. One after another they collapse. Rain remains completely unaffected, his insulated shoes protecting him from the current. To the soldiers watching from a distance, the scene is incomprehensible. None of them understand what is happening. They can only assume Rain is wielding some kind of terrifying thunder magic. Rain, meanwhile, watches with mild curiosity. A small part of him even wishes he had a way to record the moment, if only to later demonstrate to his workers the dangers of mishandling electricity. Caesar, furious, shouts at the remaining soldiers for hesitating. One of them stammers that Rain must be using forbidden magic, since anyone who gets close dies instantly. Enraged, Caesar cuts him down on the spot, declaring that disobedience will not be tolerated. He orders the rest to charge, insisting that Rain is still only one man. Moments later, however, a few soldiers remain standing at the edge of the field. Leah, noticing this, asks why they are unaffected. Rain calmly explains that the battery must have run out. He only brought one for testing. Leah suggests retreating with him, but Rain refuses. Letting Caesar escape now would only create bigger problems later. Sensing the shift, Caesar realizes the mysterious power has stopped. He immediately orders a full assault. The soldiers surge forward again. And then, suddenly, a bolt of lightning crashes down from the sky. From the strike emerges Selena, her expression cold with anger. Behind her stand several mages, all ready for battle. She looks at Caesar and remarks that he is far bolder than he should be. Caesar understands instantly. His situation has just worsened beyond recovery. Selena turns to Rain, asking if she arrived in time. He nods, explaining that his device had just lost power. Intrigued, she asks about the strange energy he used, but Rain tells her he will explain later. First, they must deal with the rebels. At her command, the mages unleash their spells. Lightning tears through the battlefield, striking down soldiers and leaving the survivors trembling and begging for mercy. Caesar, however, refuses to yield. Driven by desperation, he charges straight at Rain, aiming to cut him down himself. Before he can land the blow, Leah intercepts him. Her dagger blocks his strike, and in the next instant she counters. Her kick sends him crashing violently into a wall.
And this is how this part of this manhwa ends. Also in the future I will be bringing more and more exciting videos. Please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, hit the like button and stay tuned until the next video.